In this video, I'm going to discuss Harm OCD and what you can do about it to recover from Harm OCD, anxiety, OCD in general. They're all the same principles I personally use to recover from anxiety naturally, and I've been anxiety-free for 7 years now, and I've also helped others achieve the same result. So let's dive right into it. Harm OCD basically means that you have these intrusive thoughts of potentially harming other people that really catch you off guard and make you freak out and have lots of anxiety because they make you maybe feel like you're an evil person or you're going to do something evil or bad to someone. But the fact that you have this anxiety around it suggests that you're not actually evil. You're not a psychopath who doesn't care about other people and has no empathy whatsoever. Otherwise, you wouldn't be concerned about having that thought. You'd have that thought and you would give it no second thought. You would not create anxiety around it. So having that thought and being aware of it and even looking up solutions like this indicates that you're not insane, indicates you're not going crazy, indicates that it's just anxiety in an intrusive form, a manifestation of anxiety. And maybe you don't view OCD as part of anxiety, but I can assure you that I also had these thoughts, and it's not even useful to see it as harm OCD, right? Because that's like now you have a label, a sub form of anxiety or OCD, and now you're the victim, and now you can't overcome it. And that's all BS in my personal experience. When I had anxiety, now probably 10 years ago or something, when it started for me, I was living in Scotland and I proceeded to go to the doctor, who said, you can take some pills and maybe you can manage it, but you'll have this for the rest of your life. I then also tried some counseling and therapy, and that just made matters worse for me, and it didn't actually help me. Now, I'm not saying those things can't help, but it seems like they're not very effective like the most common methods. They often don't help people, unfortunately. Okay, I'm sure there's people that are good at what they do in that area, but for lots of people, it seems not to be that beneficial. And I've actually helped people that have had anxiety for decades, maybe 10 years, 20 years and stuff. So that's insane. I had it 3 to 4 years. But back then, there was no information like this. There were no videos. There wasn't as much content. So I was just there. Oh, the mainstream narrative was there's no solution. And this is you now. Now you're a victim, right? And I also had something called musical OCD, which was music was playing in my head. And then I thought, okay, now I've finally gone insane. I have this music playing in my head, but I didn't understand it's also OCD, another form of thought energy repeatedly occurring, and it's just playing it's the same with intrusive thoughts, just the anxiety and the nervous system that is out of order, out of balance. And it makes sense if you think about anxiety being a survival program, whereby it's meant to have the fight or flight or freeze response, right? So in this case, I'm guessing, it's just a guess here, but that harm OCD intrusive thought is actually a fight response, the nervous system activating the fight response, okay? Because that's why you want to harm someone, because you're fighting for survival. Your body and subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something that is vividly imagined and something that is real. So for your nervous system and subconscious, you're in a fight or flight situation in that moment. So that's why it wants to fight, and it just uses whatever in your environment. Subconsciously, oh, that's a threat, I'm going to fight it. So you might just sit at the table with your family or something, and suddenly you have this crazy intrusive thought of wanting to harm them or something. And it's not because you're evil or something's wrong with you. It's just because you have anxiety, and for some reason you have this accumulation of anxious energy in your system that hasn't been released yet, and that's why it's manifesting in this way, which is very scary. Generally, anxiety symptoms are very scary. And for me, OCD is part of anxiety. You can just put it under this idea of anxiety, So as mentioned, people with anxiety, they often have a multitude of symptoms. So I don't even think it's helpful to classify according to those psychological classifications of oh, this person has this symptom, and that means, they have this disorder. And I think that's a limiting belief. It's a limitation placed upon people whereby they then believe they have a disorder, and belief creates reality. What you believe to be true generally tends to manifest, right? So if you believe I'm attractive, I'm amazing, then you will radiate that, and then people will respond to that, right? If you're confident, then people respect you, right? So if you believe in yourself, you'll take action to change your life, right? So that's very clear indication that, beliefs which are just repeated thoughts that have been ingrained into the subconscious mind create your reality combined with action, obviously. But anyway, let's discuss further harm OCD. I hope you understand my point of harm OCD being a manifestation of anxiety, and The next limiting belief I want to dispel, right, is that you can't overcome anxiety. And the way to recover from OCD, from panic attacks, from anxiety, from physical symptoms, it's not about addressing individual symptoms or even excessively Googling them or trying to, I need to fix harm OCD, or I need to fix frequent urination, or I need to fix intrusive thoughts, I need to fix depression, I need to fix this, I need to fix, swallowing, or whatever symptoms you have, right? And by the way, before I get into this, I'm suggesting that you go to the doctor, you get a test, a medical check, blood work done, etc., to rule out anything else. So then you can truly let it go and not think like, oh, I must be going insane, it must be anxiety, this must be me going mad, it must be something else. People also have like other forms of fears. They have like health anxiety, which could also be a health OCD, right? It doesn't matter what you call it. Calling it something is just a limiting belief. It's like, it's not the way to look at it. It's just anxiety, and that's it. Obviously gotten checked, right? Like what I said before. So it's anxiety and not something else, right? So it's not some other health issue. Once you've done that, you can rest assured and actually focus on the anxiety recovery principles, which are comprised of acceptance, keeping busy, facing fear, imperfect action, and personal development. Let me briefly discuss what each of these entail, which is acceptance. That's number one, because most people with anxiety, they're fighting the anxiety, and fighting it is fueling it. Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. So by fighting the anxiety, by giving it so much importance in your life, it just gets worse and worse. It just stays there, right? It's like a ball, you're holding it underwater instead of just letting it go and allowing it to flow out to your system. Anyway, that's how like healing works on an emotional level, is you just want to allow it to be there, understanding that emotion is energy in motion and feeling is healing. So you just want to actually allow it to be there so that it can pass, right? So that it can dissolve. So see how like the fighting, the resisting it actually prevents the solution, right? Prevents the dissolving. Now, for whatever reason this anxiety has been created in the first place, we don't need to understand that. Some people believe you have to go into the past and do all this inner work or shadow work to discover the one source and then release that and clear that. And that can be a good thing to do in general if you feel called to do it, but it's not necessary to overcome anxiety, and it can be another form of resisting it subtly, where you're like, oh, I need to fix all these, find this, it's again this resistant energy, right? And what you resist persists. So even wanting to know, like, how long is it going to take? When will I get better? Why do I have these symptoms today? Yesterday I felt better than today. Oh, today I had no thoughts. Oh, why did this all come back again? That's also resistance. So you just want to accept the condition, accept the anxiety, and trust the process and implement the right principles. As you do that over time, you will notice that you begin to feel better and better. And another thing is setbacks. People often experience setbacks. I did myself as well, where you feel better for a bit and then boom, it comes back like full force, like very intense. But that's actually a sign of progress, because setback means you've been feeling better. And the way healing works is in stages. So it's not like you accept the anxiety and it releases itself all at once in one day, because probably you would like the system can handle that, right? So it releases bits and bits and bits and bits, and eventually it's all released, right? And if you look at society and people, like everyone has lots of this energy, even people that don't have anxiety. Even I still deal with stress, or I accumulate stress, or nobody's perfect, right? So just be patient with yourself and just accept the anxiety and allow it to be there, because then it will actually heal. You don't need to micromanage it. You don't want to Google it. You don't want to fight it and resist it. You just want to allow it to do its thing. Understanding that it's just anxiety. I would often say to myself, it's just anxiety, to calm myself down. Okay, it's just anxiety. This too shall pass. It's just anxiety. And this even like can be a form of meditation, right? Where you observe it, you watch it, you can focus on your breath going in and out. Make sure you feel grounded whilst you do that, never leaving your body or inviting other things in, just grounding, focusing on the breath. The crazy thoughts come, refocusing on the breath. That's a meditation. You can do that in the morning. I would often do morning routines. Now I'm skipping ahead from acceptance to principal personal development. Principal personal development is like doing a morning routine. It can even just be for 10 minutes, right? Or even 5 minutes in the beginning, like 1 minute of meditation, 1 minute of visualizing something, visualization. So visualizing what you want to have instead. So visualizing, maybe you have been avoiding things due to the anxiety, maybe visualizing your ideal life, like how would you like to live? What would you like to do if you didn't have anxiety? What does your ideal life look at like without limitations? And then also journaling. So having a journal, write down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for, truly feeling that gratitude, even if it initially feels forced. And then maybe a plan for the day, the goal, like what's the one thing I want to accomplish today? And then just doesn't have to be a huge thing, right? Just don't focus on like Everest, like climbing the whole mountain. Just do a tiny next step. And that tiny steps, those tiny micro things, they lead to momentum, right? And then you just want to build that habit, And if you have anxiety, a goal could be like, oh, I'm going to meet a friend today. I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to record a video, whatever. I'm going to do something, right? That's going to move me forward to my goal. Or I'm going to, I don't know, take notes on this video. Today I'm going to focus on implementing acceptance, whatever it is, right? So you're making like personal development a priority in your life. Reading books as well. If you have the time, make sure you read a bit every day in a book, it can just be 5 pages or something. You build that momentum and you read some personal development books, And you can check out my book, by the way, on Amazon. If you type in my name, Andy Kloss, you will find it immediately, the book, And other than that, we have the other principles, which is, we talked about acceptance. So next one is facing fear. So nothing great actually ever comes from the comfort zone. So most people with anxiety, they remain in their comfort zone. They're never leaving the comfort zone. As a result, they're never exposing themselves to growth situations, and they're reinforcing the anxious identity by listening to the anxiety voice in the head, which is saying, don't do this, don't do that, it's scary, blah, blah. And so they stay in this prison imposed by the anxiety. They're listening to the voice of anxiety, agreeing to it, okay? And obviously it's scary to leave the comfort zone to face your fears, but you have to do it. Otherwise you'll be remaining stuck, So you go, if you leave the comfort zone, you face fear, and then you combine that with acceptance, and that also accelerates the transformation. So you have the inner game acceptance, the outer game facing fear. And also, again, you can start small. You don't have to climb Everest, just a small, tiny action. Just even be like, today I'm going to, I don't know what it is for you, right? Depends. I don't know exactly where you're at. But what's a small thing you can do to leave the comfort zone? Write it down as a goal for that day or something. And you don't have to be perfect. If you're having the worst day ever, you might just have a day where you're just chilling, watching some movies or series or whatever. But just don't do that every day, right? So it's okay to have like a soothing, calming day just to feel good, Okay, so now we talked about acceptance, facing fear. Now we're going to talk about imperfect action. So all of this, you can't do it perfectly, and perfectionism is actually an obstacle to progress. So if you're trying to be perfect, you're going to end up doing nothing. So just take imperfect action. Even if you go somewhere and you then freak out completely in panic, for example, you can then just go home, right? And you're like, okay, I showed up. That's all that matters. That was my goal. Maybe I left after a minute, but it doesn't matter. I pushed through. I persevered. I had some courage. I took some action. Okay. And that just builds momentum over time. Next time you stay a bit longer. Next time you remain a bit longer. And you see how these micro things, not the huge thing, because then we end up not doing it, build positive momentum and meaningful progress. So we have acceptance, keeping busy, facing fear, keeping busy we didn't discuss, which is anxiety is so strong that it's hard to constantly practice acceptance. It will just overwhelm you because the whole nervous system is fried and full of anxiety in the subconscious. So you want to keep yourself busy pretty much all the time and practice acceptance in the background. So what I did, I would often get into like reading books, podcasts, working on projects, maybe starting a business, growing your business, getting a new job, or if you, I don't know what you're at, right? But just like doing stuff, living as though you're anxiety free, which enforces that reality, right? You want to step into that version and act from that version that doesn't have anxiety. And then your subconscious will catch up. This is also tied into facing fear, obviously. And then as you do that, it will freak you out a bit initially. And as you do acceptance, it might be a bit uncomfortable in the beginning. But as you do these things, you combine these principles, you will notice that eventually anxiety gets less and less, and that over time you will recover from it naturally. Okay, so we have acceptance, keeping busy, facing fear, imperfect action, and personal development. So I think we kind of go into it really nicely. If you want some help implementing this, actually schedule a free call below. There's a link somewhere, and we can have a chat. I offer coaching to see if it makes sense to work together. And other than that, I'll see you in the next video. And yeah, talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in.